All right, so we've got this mountain of documents you've provided, financial records, legal letters, even court transcripts. And it's all about this one, we're calling him Debtor 5, a Jamaican businessman, sounds like. It's like we're going deep into a story about, well, ambition, complicated finances, and, that whole Jamaican financial crisis back in the 90s.
What really gets me about all this is how it shows, like, the real-life impact of FINSAC, the financial sector adjustment company. We hear about them a lot, but this is about a person. This is about what it did to someone's life.
So who was this Debtor 5? What was his business all about?
Well, he was a businessman, ran a couple of companies. Actually, they were kind of like sister companies. And his dealings with Century National Bank, CNB, that all started back in, let me see, January of '88. Pretty standard stuff at first, demand loans, overdrafts, usual banking stuff.
So pretty normal
Yeah.
for a business, right?
Yeah, for a while. Then around September '88, he gets these specific credit facilities for his companies from CNB. And then it gets interesting. November 1989, he gets a big loan, like really big, $275,000 from Eagle Merchant Bank of Jamaica Limited. It was a term loan and also a revolving demand loan. And get this, part of it was backed by the IFC, the International Finance Corporation.
Okay, so big loan. What was it for? What was he trying to do?
It was for this company of his, Caribbean Chalk Instruments and Art Products, CCIAP. They made chalk, crayons, that kind of thing. Their whole plan was about making more stuff locally, because of import restrictions and all. Debtor 5, he wanted to go big, expand to Trinidad and Tobago.
Right, yeah.
Ambitious.
Big goals. A loan that size, he must have had to put up a lot, right? Collateral.
Oh, yeah, he did. Corporate guarantee from one of the sister companies, his own personal guarantee, even used his insurance policies as security. That's putting a lot on the line.
Talk about pressure. But looks like things went south kind of fast. Just a year later, October 1990, CNB says, hey, CCIAP, you're over your overdraft limit. Seems like it all went downhill from there.
It did. Fast. February 1991, interest rates on that IFC part of the loan skyrocketed. Made it way harder to pay back. And Debtor 5, he talks about this in his statement, he had these huge delays getting raw materials for his company, the stuff they needed to, actually make anything.
So not only were the interest rates going crazy, but he couldn't even get the supplies to make money and pay it back.
Exactly. Like everything was hitting him at once. Imagine that. The debt piling up, and you can't even make your product to sell because of something you can't control.
Recipe for disaster, that's for sure. So how'd that go over with CNB?
Yeah, about that. December 1993, CNB, well, their lawyers, sent him this demand letter. Full payment. They wanted it all. And this is what, like 3 years after those problems started?
And here's where it gets really interesting, right? Because FINSAC shows up in 99, and they also want their money, calling his debt non-performing.
And this is where Debtor 5's side of things gets, well, really interesting and kind of disturbing, honestly. He says he doesn't owe anything, says he settled up long before FINSAC even got involved, and he says CNB totally messed up how they handled the loan.
Hold on, so we've got two totally different stories here. CNB saying he owes them, and him saying everything was paid off. What's his proof? What's he based that on?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And that's where we got to dig in next. So his statement, it's pretty detailed. He lays out all these times he thinks CNB, well, either messed up or just wasn't straight up. Like, remember those raw material delays? He talks about those a lot. I mean, those were crucial for CCIP, his company, to, make anything. No raw materials, no production, no income, no way to pay back the loan, right?
Well, like having a bakery but no flour. What else does he say?
He says CNB took funds that were supposed to be for specific things for the business and used them for something else entirely.
Wait, so they were, dipping into the company's money for other stuff? What's that all about?
Yeah, it's a serious accusation, that's for sure. Maybe something to check out in those financial records you got there. Debtor 5 is basically saying this is a big reason why he couldn't keep up with the loan payments.
This is messy. Seems like this guy was getting hit from all sides even before FINSAC showed up. But how'd FINSAC even get pulled into this? Didn't they just use CNB's info?
Good point. And Debtor 5, he's adamant that FINSAC's whole claim is based on this, get this, fictitious demand loan account. He's saying it never existed. He never took out this loan, so FINSAC's numbers are totally bogus.
Wow. He's saying they made up a debt out of thin air.
Pretty much. And it gets better. He says that when everything went down, when the financial crisis hit, his account with CNB, it was in credit. He's saying he didn't owe them a dime. He was actually in the black.
If that's true, that's hard to believe they could get it so wrong. What did he do? Did he try to explain all this to FINSAC?
It seems like it. We see in the documents, letters from his lawyers, later on, court stuff, that he definitely fought back against FINSAC, but it seems like he hit a wall, like they weren't really listening.
Ugh, frustrating. So what happened?
Sadly, his story isn't unique, you know? Lots of people, businesses too, they argued against FINSAC's numbers back then. Said things weren't added up right, that kind of thing. Debtor 5's just one example of a much bigger problem.
It's like you were saying earlier about the human cost of all this. We talk about a financial crisis, but this is the guy saying he was forced to pay a debt he never even owed.
Exactly. Makes you think about the whole system, you know? Were there even any protections for people like him?
It's a good reminder that behind every big economic event, every statistic, there are actual people dealing with the fallout.
For sure. Oh, and there's this other part of his statement I found interesting. He talks about how he finally gets the machinery he ordered for CCIIP. This is April 1990. But the raw materials to actually use it don't arrive until November.
He had to wait months to even use the equipment. That's brutal, especially when he's already under pressure to make money.
Exactly. And here's the kicker. By the time the materials arrive, CCIA gets approved for this government program, duty-free imports, meaning they didn't even need that chunk of the loan that was meant for import duties.
Are you saying the bank, C&B, was making him pay back a part of the loan he didn't even need anymore?
That's what Debtor 5 is claiming. He says this whole thing shows how badly they were managing his account, making his problems even worse.
Sounds like he got caught in a bad situation that just kept getting worse. If what he's saying is true, I mean.
And, you know, this whole thing with the delayed materials and that extra loan money, it makes that fictitious demand loan account even more fishy, right? If CNB was demanding payment for stuff that wasn't needed or, already spent elsewhere, it makes you wonder how that affected everything else. Their calculations, FINSAC's assessment, the whole 9 yards.
So it's not just one mistake. It's a pattern of questionable stuff happening with his accounts that FINSAC might have used to come after him.
Exactly. And this gets to the heart of transparency, accountability, all that, especially during a crisis. Were there even any safeguards in place back then?
These are big questions, especially when you realize how much damage can be done to people, to families, even to whole businesses.
Absolutely. And the documents go on to show that in 2003, he files a lawsuit against FINSAC, the Jamaican Redevelopment Foundation, which was like a branch of FINSAC, and this company, Dennis Joslin Jamaica Inc.
Who are they? What are they doing in this whole mess?
So Dennis Joslin Jamaica Inc., they were handling debt collection for the Jamaican Redevelopment Foundation. And in 2003, they sent Debtor 5 a letter demanding full payment on this huge sum with a 30% annual interest rate.
30%? Come on, that's insane, especially given everything else going on. What was he even hoping to get out of this lawsuit?
He wanted the court to make some official declarations. First, that he and his companies, they didn't owe FINSAC a cent. Second, that either FINSAC or the Jamaican Redevelopment Foundation, they had to issue something, a memorandum or something, officially clearing that mortgage on his property.
He wanted a clean slate, to clear his name, basically.
Exactly. To undo all the damage he felt FINSAC had caused. And remember, this wasn't just about money for him. This was his reputation, his life, his future.
It really shows how money problems can impact every part of your life.
Absolutely. Now, his lawyers, they argued that based on the original loan agreement, that debt to Eagle Merchant Bank, it should have been paid off by March 1992, interest and all.
That's a big deal because if that's true, then by the time FINSAC gets involved in 99, there's no debt for them to even collect.
Exactly. They were poking holes in FINSAC's case right from the start. The lawyers pointed to specific parts of the loan agreements, the clauses, and argued that the collateral Debtor 5 put up, it wasn't supposed to cover anything beyond that initial loan.
So if the court agreed with that, FINSAC's case would crumble. They were going after him for something from years earlier, something that wasn't even covered by the original deal.
Exactly. It was a smart move, but that wasn't all.
What else did they argue?
They said that Eagle Merchant Bank had a duty to be competent and careful with how they handled everything, as his lender.
So they were saying the bank messed up too.
Yeah, basically saying that the bank, through carelessness or whatever, might have actually caused some of Debtor 5's problems, making him a target for FINSAC. They brought up specific examples of where they thought the bank dropped the ball, like with that letter of credit for the raw materials.
So they weren't just saying FINSAC was wrong, they were saying the bank was in on it too.
Kind of. They were building this whole case saying the debt wasn't even real in the first place, and oh, by the way, the bank might be to blame for some of this mess. They even said that the bank messed up by not changing the letter of credit when the shipping details changed, which just made those raw material delays even worse.
Sounds like they were pulling out all the stops to help this guy. Did it work? What happened?
That's the thing. We don't know. We don't have the final court decision in all this. What we do have are these bailiffs reports from April 2006, and they don't look good, even years after the crisis, years after all the legal stuff.
Years after he sued them.
Years later. And they paint a pretty bleak picture of what happened to Debtor 5.
So these reports, these bailiff reports, what do they actually say about what happened to him, to Debtor 5?
It's like they give us a peek into, what came after all this, even years later. They're trying to find assets, anything of value. They even mention a company called Debtor 5 company name, and they went to his last business address, too.
Anything.
Nothing. The report says nothing to levy. It's like he vanished. And it gets worse. They say his business, it was seized years earlier by the Urban Development Corporation.
So not just hiding assets, his business was gone. Gone.
It's bleak, man. And then, get this, they even go to these apartments, Urban Development Corporation apartments in Kingston, where he was, supposedly living.
If they find him, what happened?
Yeah, they found him. He told them, the business, it was done, closed up, said he had nothing left to pay any debts.
That's rough. You can just feel the weight of it all. Years of fighting, losing his business, and all for what he said was a debt he didn't even owe.
It really makes you think about, what these crises do to people. It's not just numbers on a page, it's lives, And Debtor 5's case, it's just one story. There were a lot of people in Jamaica back then going through something similar.
It reminds us that the financial world, it's not just about money, it's about people's lives.
Exactly. And when it goes wrong, when those systems fail, the consequences, they're real and they last. What gets me about Debtor 5 is how much he believed that he was, cheated. That they'd done him wrong, made him carry this debt he never owed.
He never gave up on that, even after everything.
Right. Even after the lawsuits, losing everything, he held on to that. And we might never know the whole truth of it, but his story, it makes us think about fairness, about transparency, about how we protect people when things go bad. How do we make sure it doesn't happen again?
It's a powerful story. It reminds us about the real cost of these crises. And I think it makes us think about how to build a better system for the future, a fairer one.
I agree. This one stays with you.